Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Mind interview series, where we are talking to real live humans just like you who are working to be and do their best every single day. And with me here, I have Patrick McGinnis, who's an incredibly impressive professional and human. He is a speaker, a coach, a founder. He is the originator of the term FOMO, fear of missing out, and creator of the hit podcast FOMO Sapiens. So, Patrick, welcome. We are so excited to have you here today on the Modern Mind interview series.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Well, first things first, it'd be great to kick things off by learning a little bit more about who you are as a person and how you got here with all these incredible accolades and
Wow.
as a owner of the term FOMO, which is whoa.
Well, can you own a word? I, I, I am. Well, thank you. So my story is, I grew up in a small town in Maine, and I was always very curious. I still am. And so as a kid, I did a little bit of everything. Let's just say that I might have had a fear of missing out on things. So it's built into me in my DNA. And then after I went off to college, and I was at Georgetown over in Washington, and I thought I was going to work on the Hill and get involved in politics. And then I tried it. I was like, nope. And so then I went my junior year to Argentina, fell in love with Latin America, came out, got a job on Wall Street doing Latin America finance and eventually venture capital, which led me to an MBA at Harvard Business School, which led me back to New York, where I got involved doing investing all over the world and traveled everywhere from Pakistan to Turkey to Colombia for my work. And then through a lot of different things, including the financial crisis, ended up striking out on my own. And today I do a combination of investing, coaching, media, and other things like that. So it's been a real journey, but really driven by curiosity, I'd say.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, that is one of our key values at Mindy and also for most of our viewers here. So we're very excited to be having you. That's quite a journey, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of different elements to it. And so
Mm.
we'd love to hear a little bit more about your mental fitness journey. Like, what were those big pivot moments like? What did they feel like? Yeah, and how are you doing now?
They felt very painful, Lissy. I'm going to be honest. So,
Always.
okay. So what did it has been a journey and a very valuable one. And I super appreciate the question and the work that you do, because I'm from Maine, stoic people. Nobody I knew went to therapy or anything like that. I mean, that was just didn't exist. I mean, a Catholic from Maine, for goodness sake. And and I'm a person who was always extraordinarily self-reliant. That's how I was raised. And so asking for help is just not what you do. You figure it out. And I think there's a lot of good to that. But and it was, I was very successful and I did really well and everything was going swimmingly. And I never really thought much about these topics. And then in 2008, I alluded to this before, I worked for a division of AIG, the insurance company, that in 2008 blew up and was nationalized by the government. And my stock in the company fell about 97% in a course of a couple of days. And I had a complete freak out to the point where I ended up on a heart monitor. I ended up having a stress-induced disease that I just still don't know what the heck it was. It was essentially like COVID or long COVID. It was a viral kind of thing. So it was like a sickness and then this like lingering unwellness for months and months and months. And I was depressed and upset and felt like very disappointed in the world and let down. And that really for me was like hitting a wall. And I was very unwilling and afraid to ask for help. And in the ensuing period, I had to learn to ask for help, to be vulnerable, sharing what was going on with me, to look for ways to alleviate stress, and to find ways to change my mindset. And so it was a very, it was a long journey. And of course, we all know that this is an ongoing journey, but it was a massive reframe for me of how I saw the world and my place within it. And I guess my big takeaway from the experience was that you don't have to do it alone, that you can ask for help, that there are ways And when you do that and you get over that fear, of course, then you know that like it's actually a superpower.
Absolutely. That's wild. I can only imagine. I've had something somewhat similar happen where the mental becomes physical
Mm.
and you kind of realize they're inextricably linked. I'm curious, like, what was the moment for you where you were like, okay, it's not just about taking care of this virus, that I have in my body. I need to talk to a coach or a therapist, or I, need to really invest in like my mind in this case.
Yeah, it was. So I am such a tough guy. I mean, I'm not beating people up, but like I'm a stoic. And so when I get sick, I used to be like, oh, I'm sick. And I remember one time, this is a little TMI, but we're all friends here. Flying to Washington for a board meeting, coming down with like a crazy illness, and like going to a board meeting and leaving the board meeting 3 times to get sick in the bathroom and going back and sitting in the room.
Wow.
I know. People wouldn't do that now after COVID. People would be like, you get, right?
You get out. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, I just think that's like my work is more important than how I feel
Oh my
moment,
goodness. It was so
which a
silly.
lot
And
of
my
us can
boss
relate
was
to.
like, you're green. But he didn't tell me to leave. I mean, he was like, stay in the meeting. So anyway, we all learned a little something from that. But
Yeah.
so I thought I could just power through. And what I realized was I had no idea. First of all, I really didn't know how to deal with the physical stuff. So I was really scared and I didn't even tell anybody. I hid it. So I didn't leave my apartment for
Yeah.
like a week. People were like, where were you? And I was like, oh, busy. But I didn't tell anybody I wasn't well. Um, and I think that was a sign. And the other thing was that I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My company had blown up. I was really miserable. And so I spent a lot of time in deep anger. I remember I would leave the apartment in the morning on the way to the office, and I would just like my level of anger would crescendo as I got closer to the building. And I just remember that was, sort of in 2008 was when AIG blew up. 6 or 7 months later, when I sort of physically recovered to the point where I could deal with all the rest of it, I just said to myself, like, why are you've done all the things you were supposed to do. You worked hard. You got an MBA from Harvard, all this stuff, and you're miserable and you're angry and you're a jerk. And I just thought to myself, this isn't right. And I got to do something here. Boom.
Boom. And what was that something? Was it therapy, coaching,
No, it wasn't
breathing?
actually. Not that I'm
Okay.
anti-therapy, but like I just didn't even
No,
occur to
please.
me.
Yeah.
It was a combination of things. So first thing that I did
Yeah.
was I spent a lot of time thinking deeply about my values and what was important to me.
Okay.
And really just doing a little bit of like a self-exploration. The second was working with a couple of people who I trusted. I still wasn't at the point where I was like ready to work with a coach or a therapist or anything like that. I was still like
Yeah.
and then slowly but surely adding in a bunch of modalities that kind of approximated. So I got into meditation and yoga and mindfulness and things like that. And so over time, I think for a guy like me, I needed to sort of like add layers in over time and be like, oh, meditation, that's not so weird. Okay. It actually works really well. Oh, yoga. Oh, that's not, like guys can do yoga. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that. I always joke like my practice has evolved over time, and I like thinking about that as a cake where you're adding different bits to it. And then honestly, it doesn't work with the cake analogy because you take out certain pieces too, and then the cake doesn't fall apart. In fact, it becomes richer and more beautiful
Yes.
as you figure out your stack. So we'll talk more about your current tools in a second. But I'm curious, so you had this period back in 2008. You started working with all these different tools to kind of work on your mental fitness. When did the term FOMO come into all of this? And was that from a place of strength? Was that from a place of discovery and curiosity? Was it from a place of pain? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. So FOMO, it predates all that, and it comes from a place of humor. Although, I mean, FOMO is really about a place of lack.
Yeah.
We're focusing on what we don't have. And so if we think about it, in a broader sense, but where I came at it from was, I was living in New York City working. I had no time for FOMO because I worked in banking and I was studying for the GMAT. I took my GMAT And I went out and partied that night with my friends. And I left the bar and I looked down. I don't know how long you lived in New York, but do you remember a place called Pravda?
Yeah, I do.
It was on Lafayette,
Okay.
just south of Houston. So left that place, walked out the door, looked down Lafayette Street, saw these two beautiful buildings. And I was like, God, I love this view of the World Trade Center. And then I went home and went to bed. Well, that was the night of September 10th, 2001. And when
Wow.
I woke up the next morning, because I slept in, we had been attacked. The towers fell. And so I realized like life is precious. You never know what's going to happen. And I became very carpe diem. And I brought that with me. I got into Harvard Business School. I brought that with me. And I had never expected to go to a place like that. I don't come from like some dynastic Harvard family. I'm from a small town of Maine. So I was like, I got to do everything, not only because the world could end or something scary could happen, but because I have this one big chance to make something of myself. And so I tried to do everything. I went to every party, every class, every trip, I did it all. And I realized very quickly that I was totally stressed out, exhausted. And I started to call that feeling the fear of missing out, because I'd go to like 8 birthday parties in a night. And I was like, this is not even fun anymore. Like, this is an obligation. It's like a job to go to birthday parties, right?
Yeah.
And so I started calling it the fear of missing out, shortened it to FOMO, and wrote an article in the school newspaper that came out in May of 2004. And then I left because, I was like, I graduated, and I never really thought about it again until years later when I was reached out to by a journalist who traced it back to me. And I have since gone back to study how it spread. And it spread because my classmates and my neighbors at the school took it with them to their jobs all over the world. But there was another neighbor, a guy who had started this website that became a conduit from FOMO for all over the world. And this guy, the same semester I invented FOMO, he started this company called Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. And he lived very close to where I lived. And Mark gave us all the tool to have FOMO, which is Facebook, and the ability to compare ourselves. So it's pretty wild. And so, yeah, when when all this stuff happened to me in 2008, I had forgotten about FOMO. It wasn't until 2014 when a journalist called me and said, like, I traced FOMO to you, that I thought, oh my goodness, like this word's a thing. And the rest is history.
Whoa. Well, that's wild because no matter where I am in the world, and I love to travel, as I know you do too, you hear the term. I'm curious, like, how do you think FOMO relates to mental fitness? Touched on this a little.
How much time do you have?
Approximately, we got 26 minutes, so let's roll.
All right. So here's the thing. I've thought a lot about this. I've done a ton of research. First, Lissy, you should know, this is the part that I like. When I discovered this, like I almost fell off my chair. I was in the New York Public Library. And the cool thing about the New York Public Library, for anybody who ever goes there, is when you're in the building, you get access to all these databases. If you have a library card, databases you cannot get from your house. So I went to some database of like psychology research, and I typed in FOMO, and there were like dozens of articles written by clinical psychologists in major publications. And I realized, holy mackerel, this is a big topic in the world of clinical psychology. And then I started reading about it, and there's a bunch of different aspects, but it's really about the easiest and simplest way in the time that we have today is to say that when we have FOMO, we are telling ourselves a story about what we lack and about what others have, about the group of people that we're not a part of, and the beautiful thing we wish we had. And that story doesn't correspond to reality. I mean, there may be elements that are true, but it's filters, it's, perception, it's all this ambition, it's all kinds of crazy layers and filters that are put on these stories. And so you end up spinning a story in your head that is disconnected from reality. And that's where the pathology begins. And that is why you have all these very negative outcomes: addiction to devices, insecurity, stress, anxiety, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And so it is a tremendous inhibitor of mental fitness, with the exception that it can be an incredibly powerful motivator. So FOMO is the reason that I ran the New York City Marathon. FOMO is the reason that I applied to business school, right? There can be positive aspects, but in general, it's extraordinarily distorting.
Couldn't agree more on both sides that FOMO is neither the best nor the worst thing. There's something very much in between.
Hmm.
And at Mindy, we talk a lot about this idea that we teach people through mental fitness to see their thoughts, not be them, so they can shift them if they don't serve them.
Love that.
And so the idea I love that you brought up with this idea that FOMO can also be a powerful motivator is really fascinating. It's hard when you get these feelings and you react to them. And that's where sometimes things can go wrong. So really, really cool to hear you talk about that. And so much of also your creation process was creating and then learning and then continually creating from that. So very cool. Wow. Okay. So we've kind of gone forward, back. Now I want to jump forward. So now you're doing a whole bunch of things. I mentioned speaking, you are investing, you are also starting your own company that has to relate to a lot of these topics. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, as somebody who's been an investor over the years, and I'm not a full-time investor. I'm angel investor. I'm in the investment committee of a fund. My favorite part of the job is always the day after you invest, because I love working with founders. I love working with entrepreneurs, whether VC or PE, and I love the investment, sort of working with investors as well. But I always enjoyed that, and that's just something that I knew about myself. And I've been an advisor to a bunch of startups over the years, and increasingly people started coming to me and saying, do you do coaching? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't know a lot about that. But what I did know over time was that I got a little coaching curious. And I was like, what is this all about? Because, as you know, Lissy, it's one of these things where like, ask 10 people what they think about coaching and you'll get 11 answers. Right. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I was sort of like, I had always had a bit of a negative perception. And then I got coached by somebody who was good. And I was like, whoa, this is really great. And I got interested in learning more and seeing it as a way to, I've just told you my journey. And I really don't want other people to go through that if I can help it. And I want people to integrate a really full throttle 360 lens into how they run their business and their life. And I feel like I've spent a lot of time developing that. So I went off and did a program at Columbia University that's like a training program for coaching, because I thought to myself, some people were like, why do you need to go back to school? And I was like, have a little humility. I mean, this is a whole new thing. I want to go in, I want to take it seriously. I want to come to the table with the right approach and not just assume that I can figure it out. And so that was important to me. And I paired up with two other partners who each bring a lens that's of value to our clients. And we started this company last year, and we've been at it. And I have to say, it's a wonderful choice. It is hard work. But it has been it has really fit beautifully into the work that I do. What I love about it for me is that it's so like symbiotic with all of the work that I do, whether it's investing in media and other things. And so that's what I've been doing. And I think a big, what's funny and what I love talking to you is that when I started the company, it all started at a Diwali party. I was at a Diwali party. It was hosted by a woman called Anu Dougal. I don't know if you know her from Female Founders Fund. Old friend of mine.
Yeah, I've seen her.
She's like a total rock star. And this guy Mittal Desai was there, and he's like, "Have you thought about getting into coaching?" I was like, "You're the 9,000th person to ask me. Have you?" And he's like, "I do coach." And I was like, "Tell me more." And he's like, "You would love it." So that began the journey, and we decided to look at the business together and figure out how to do it. And I said to him that night, I said, if I were ever to do this, I would want you to be one of my partners, because he has a very strong orientation around mental fitness. He's built companies in the space. He understands it. He's on the board of NAMI. And so I was like, if we're going to do that, it has to have a lens into that. And so by design, we have incorporated the kind of work that you do into our methodology. And so like when I found out about what you were doing, I was like, oh boy, like we're going to be very good friends.
I love it. I love it. Well, here we are, chit-chatting about learning more. I'm curious, what's the best thing you've learned since creating this particular company? Because you're like a 360-degree professional. You've done the investing, you've done creating, you've done speaking, you've done building, and now you're helping others do all of these things as well. What's the best thing you've learned from this business?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to be super honest on this one.
Let's go.
which I
Buckling
mean, I'm not
up.
going to lie to you, but like, I'm going to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So when I decided to get into this business, like if you think about what I've been doing the last 5-10 years, I write books, I give talks, I'm on a lot of panels, like I have a podcast, a lot of me talking. People, pay me to hear what I have to say about things, which is awesome. And it's a privilege and I'm thankful for it. And when you write a book, you know what? People like kind of listen to you. And my concern was like, well, that's not, if I, when I'm coaching somebody, yeah, of course I can bring a viewpoint into a conversation. That's great. But this is not about me. And if it's about me, then I've got to twist it. And so I was really mindful of like, I need to figure out how to make sure that everything that I'm doing is of service to the person I'm working with and not about me. And so that was a big focus for me, something that I really wanted to be top of mind to get it right. And the good news is when you write a book, one thing I learned in the process of writing books is that it's funny. Like when you write a book, you'll have things that you've always wanted. You're like, someday if I write a book, I'm going to tell this story. So you put it in there and your editor says to you, you know what, Patrick, that story doesn't fit. And you're like, but I really like that story. And they're like, you know what? This book is not about you. The star of the book is the reader. If that story does not serve the reader, then it must be taken out. And I had to learn that the hard way. And so I think about that now. It's a frame. It's like the star of the show is the person you're working with. And everything you do must be in service of their objectives. And I think that is a mistake that a lot of people make. And so and by the way, I probably make that mistake sometimes too, but I'm very focused on it. So thinking about that and changing that mindset to put the focus in the right place has been the part that has been the best thing I've learned.
Wow. Well, as your friend, I can say both coming into this conversation, you were talking about helping someone just outside your door recently, and you've been so helpful to us already. So it sounds like it's quite natural, but also definitely a pivot for you as you were kind of switching gears, which is super interesting. I guess I never really thought about that because I've never written a book, but thank you for sharing, because that is one of those interesting ones where I think a lot of people think that coaching is my experience. I know what to do. And it's actually about their experience and them knowing what to do, which is kind of wild.
If you just tell people how smart you are, they're not going to do any of the stuff you say. They'll be like, that's really nice, but then they won't do it. Right. Don't you agree? I mean, it's like,
totally.
If like, it's kind of like if that worked, like our parents would have told us what to do, we would have done it, but we did the opposite.
It's so true. Or like, I think about that a lot. It's like coaches of sports teams. If a coach were to go in and say like, hey, I would have done this in the game, you'd probably be like, well, why weren't you in the game then? Why are you coaching me? So yeah, it's very much about the player. I love that. Okay.
Also,
so
the coach is paying the player, right? The team is paying. That's the thing. Like there, it's like, well, you're all working for an organization where like the coach is being retained by the coachee. And like, yeah, there's that financial thing, but like at the end of the day, you got to like get their buy-in and whatever. And it's crazy. It's a crazy thing, this whole thing.
It is a crazy thing. And I love that you also connected that to parenting, because I think a lot of parents can relate to that. I asked my dad, what's the number one word to describe parenting? I'm not a parent yet. I hope to be someday. And he said, being selfless. And that's kind of what I was hearing in your story. Good. I love about the book, which is you have to write this book without you in it, which seems antithetical, but it's really about the person who's going to pick it up and how they're going to take that information and reflect it in their own lives.
You will never know until that book goes out and you see it go into the world, and then the people, one of the beauty things, like writing books is not a great way to make money, by the way. Just if you're thinking about doing it, just know that, unless you're J.K. Rowling or whatever. But the people who reach out to you and tell you how the book has impacted them, it's like, what? It's very interesting. And you see that then. It's like, oh, I'm glad I didn't make it because by the way, people who write egotistical books, read their Amazon reviews. People know it. They rip them apart.
Totally. And I think these days, the word authenticity is a bit overused, like we're all sick of it. But at the end of the day, people want to connect with people and they want to feel not threatened or like told what to do or spoken over. And I think when books are too much about the person writing them, it's like one of those, where is place for me in my experience here? Yeah, which is really, really interesting. I could go like 12 down 12 rabbit holes with that. I've got like a 16 follow-ups, but we don't have time for that. And neither do the people who are watching this. So I want to get to something really important, which is what does that layer cake or tech stack of mental fitness look like for you today? What are like one or two specific things you do? They do not have to be based in research. These are just things that you do whenever you're feeling particularly stressed, overwhelmed, travel goes haywire. We were having an issue with tech earlier. Like, what are those one or two specific things you do to take care of your mental fitness today?
All right. Can I say a few? Can I do like 3
Hit
or
it.
4?
Let's
I'll be
do it.
quick.
We love
Here's
it.
my monthly routine, daily monthly routine. I meditate every day.
Okay.
And I'm happy to talk about that a bit more, but that's one thing.
Yeah.
Number 2 is I do acupuncture once a month, which is wow. Number 3, I do hypnotherapy once or twice a year.
Cool. Wow.
Which is amazing, and taps into some of the same places. And then I have like a think this is kind of a fun one. I have a weighted blanket.
Love those.
And like I wear because sleep's important. Like I have to sleep because I have Tourette's syndrome. So as a kid, if I don't sleep, like I start getting all these tics and stuff. So like sleep is super important. So I have a weighted blanket. I have an eye shade. And so that is kind of, I mean, it's weird, but you don't think of that as mental fitness. It super is because it calms the parasympathetic nervous system and I rest. I get my rest, which is so critical.
That's so critical. And we always say sleep is a building block of mental health and fitness, period.
Yeah.
So if you're not sleeping, everything else becomes a lot more difficult because you don't have that space to recharge and rest. So that's huge. Yeah. I wish we could click on every single one of these, but one, I want to hear about your daily meditation practice because that can feel really overwhelming for people.
Yes.
So what does that look like for you and how did you build it?
Okay. So you're so right. So my I'm the guy who has the brother who does TM, transcendental meditation twice a day or once or twice a day. Whoa. And my brother loves meditation and it's a awesome thing that he has done. And been doing it for a long time. And he tried to take me to some of the workshops and they were just too woo-woo for me. It was like a little bit like, I don't know, just not for me. And so I did not pick up on that. I just it wasn't my thing. But I knew that I needed to do it. And I was with my friend Ajay. We were at brunch in 2018, December of 2018. And we're at Extra Virgin in the West Village. And I was like, God, I really want to start meditating. He's like, me too. And I was like, you know what we're going to do? Let's meditate every day and let's find an app and we'll check in when we've meditated and we'll compete to see who does it more. Competitive meditation, right? Which is so antithetical, but that's how I had to start. And so I started at 5 minutes a day. I would set a timer on Insight Timer. I would do 5 minutes. And then it was 5.5 and then 6 and then da-da-da-da-da. And now I meditate 10 minutes a day. And I'll tell you something. I've had people, and I have a breathwork routine that I do as well sometimes, which is kind of like similar or whatever. And that I love that too. But I've had people say to me, 10 minutes? Oh, that's that. You got to do at least 20. 10's nothing. It's no good. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Those people stopped meditating. I've been meditating now since 2018. And what I will say is I did some research. What I read, and I don't know if you know Dina Kaplan at all, but she came on my podcast. She said if you do at least 9 minutes a day, it changes your brain, your gray matter or something. Of course, doing 3 hours would be even better. But the 10 minutes a day that I do, I see a tremendous difference in who I am. And so I can see myself getting to a place where I do more, but right now that's what's sustainable. And for me, the most important thing is doing it every darn day.
I love it. I literally want to get up and like, whoa. I mean, that's literally what we talk about at Mindy. Like research shows it's these really small things we do that make the biggest amount of difference. Like the biggest jump for people in exercise is getting no exercise and then going to 10 minutes a day and then 20. And we always joke, you can't run 10 miles without running one.
Yeah.
And you certainly can't run one without taking a couple steps. And when it comes to the 10 minutes, that is plenty, especially for the modern mind. I'm sure you notice a huge difference in yourself those 1 or 2 days you've skipped, and like how
Yes.
different it is to try to like calm down. We always try to get folks to say like even 10 minutes is actually a lot. And I'm super impressed that you're able to do that, knowing how busy you are with your travel schedule. Uh, yeah, we at Mindy start people with 2 minutes a day. And we
That's
celebrate
awesome.
that.
You know, I think the key is I know in the morning when I'm going to do it. It's part of I have decided, and I typically do it right after work
Totally.
because I can't do it in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. I shouldn't say can't. I don't. And so, but I know that when I finish my work before I enter my evening routine, that's a perfect time for me to do it. If not, I'll do it right before bed.
Amazing. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to ask you about some of these other tools too. Let me ask you really quickly about hypnotherapy because that's so
Yeah.
unique. Really
Yeah.
quick, how'd you find it? And what are like the key benefits for you?
So I was trying to quit something, and I was talking to my acupuncturist, and he was like, "You should go to hypnotherapy." And I was like, "All right." And I went, and it worked. And so, and what I realized was, and now I've gone like probably 10 times. And I've had, I have a guy I work with called Daniel Ryan, who's been on my podcast. He's in Brooklyn. What I learned about hypnotherapy is, number one, is it's not for everybody. For some reason, first of all, for some people are predisposed to having a positive experience. But also, if you do meditation and other stuff, like, I've heard there's a relationship with like psychedelics and stuff. Like, the more of those things that you do, the more that you're just able to go to that place. And so because I meditate every day, like my first time I did hypnotherapy, it was really hard. Like, he was like, "Man, you are a tough one." Now when I go, like, head hits the pillow, I'm out. So it's crazy. I'm like the most hypnotized. Don't use that against me, anybody. If you're like a comic hypnosis person to like make me squawk like a chicken on the street. But by the way, if that's all, I don't know what that is. Like, I remember every one of my sessions, but like I went in, I'll give you a great example of a use case. I have a fear of doctors. I've had it since I was a little kid. It's an ingrained pattern of thinking that does not serve me. And, like every year when it was doctor time, I'd have like total anxiety and would not want to go to doctor or not even go and all these things. And like, so that was the thing I identified as really bad. Like, you got to go to the doctor. That's like messed up. So anyway, I went to Daniel and I said, like, "Fix me, please." And basically we decided how we wanted to reframe that from fear to curiosity. We did the session. And then, I left and I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And a week later, I had a dream that I was at the doctor's office and I was like, "Give me more tests. Can you give me another test, please? Like, I want to see." It was weird. Like, it happened in my head. And then I went to the doctor and like, do I love it? Is it my favorite thing? Is it like ice cream? No, but I do it and I'm not afraid. And I have a sense of curiosity. Like, I was waiting for, I had to have like a test done for something that ended up being no big deal. But when I got the test results, I was kind of excited. Just so messed up. It's like,
It's not messed up. It's beautiful. I mean, this is really, I'm smiling because this is what mental fitness is all about, is creating these new thought patterns, especially ones that help you adapt and thrive and optimize your life. And so the idea that, to your point, it's not eating ice cream, but it's not so detestable that you're avoiding it at the detriment of your health. That's pretty unique and special. So I'm going to definitely make sure we write down the name
have
of
you
your
done it, by the way?
hypnotherapist.
Have you
Never
tried
done hypnotherapy before, but done psychedelic assisted therapy and, talk therapy and a whole bunch. So,
well, if you want to go, I will hook you up because I love it. Like, you feel like the rest of the day is amazing. Like, every time I'm on the subway, I'm tapping my toes, I'm singing along to my like music. People are looking at me like, "Who is that guy?"
well, I want to be that gal. So I 100% want to try it. I would love a connect because I have some thought patterns I think that could use a little tweaking these days. It's for another show though. Okay, we're going to do our rapid fire final questions for you so we can make sure we can squeeze the life out of your knowledge and humor because you're so funny. Okay. First one is a two-parter for you specifically. What is your number one favorite read, podcast on mental fitness? And what is your number one favorite thing that you've written or created on mental fitness for everyone?
These are good. I love Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Logotherapy. It's a beautiful book. It's kind of like cheese. You can only have a little bit a day. So you should like just take a page or two. But I read it early in the pandemic, and it's a beautiful book. So check that out. And my favorite thing I've created, I'm very proud of my book, Fear of Missing Out, Practical Decision Making in a World of Overwhelming Choice. It's my book about FOMO and FOBO, Fear of Better Options. So that's my little baby.
I love it. All right, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for everybody. All right, next question. Best piece of life advice that you've ever gotten or that you're currently living by?
I'll tell you my new mantra.
Let's hear it.
Harmony is a choice.
Ooh.
Let me unpack that for you. We're all cells. We're all vibration, atoms hitting each other. We can choose at the cellular level by what we eat, what we drink, what we think, how we treat ourselves to create harmony. We can create harmony in the people we talk to, how we interact with others. We can create harmony on global structures in geopolitics. Like, we can choose harmony. You can't choose happiness. Happiness is like, that's a whole other thing. You know what I mean? Harmony is a choice that you can make every moment of every day. You have a moment, every moment you have a chance to choose it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have the chills right now, but I know that we got some real intellectual skeptics here who listen to what we do, who would say, that's great, Patrick, but what about that day that your boss yells at you? That's not harmonious. Or the moment in the city when the sirens are wailing. How do you find harmony in those moments?
I'm going to tell you something. I have a good friend who was on my pod, Mike Ott, jumped in a lake, hit his head, paralyzed. He actually is okay now, but 2 months paralyzed.
Okay.
The moment that he hit, he realized he was paralyzed. He had a choice to make, and he just he just rolled with it. Like, he was like, I guess my life will be different now. And I think, and what am I saying? What am I saying is that, like, when you're waiting in line and the barista is slow, you can make a choice. Yep. Because that's in your control, your reaction to the world around you. And I know it sounds very Pollyannish, but I swear to God, if you do some of the things we're talking about, like, if you start to choose harmony and put your energy towards that, like, you're just going to be better at stuff because you're going to save up resources for the shit that really matters. Excuse my language.
No, don't. We only trust people on this podcast that swear.
In media, so that was unusual.
Oh, I must have brought it out in you because I do all the time. So this is a safe place. There's a lot of research saying that swearing actually is a good thing. I swear like really a lot, but never on camera. Oh, well, again, safe place here. Okay, last thing. I want to make sure everyone knows where to find you, Patrick. There's like a million places on the internet, but like, where can they come to you if they want to learn more, chat more about these topics?
So you can check out my website, patrickmcginnis.com. The podcast is FOMOsapiens.com, and the coaching company is xquotient.io. But if you just want to, if you're like, wow, it's too much, Patrick, just go to my Instagram at Patrick J. McGinnis, or reach out to me at letsconnect@patrickmcginnis.com.
Amazing. So we'll put all that in the show notes. Patrick, thank you so much for all the laughs, incredible wisdom. And I am going to be just repeating the word harmony in my head as I travel this evening by train into New York City. Really appreciate you and your time, given how busy you are. You're a total gem and genius. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for the Modern Mind interview series today. We are so excited to have you here, and we'll see you back soon.